Hello and thanks for watching Best Maths Tutors. We continue to go through our series on algebra, and this time we're going to be looking at factorisation, which is a big topic when it comes to GCSE maths. So the first thing that we need to know is, what does factorising mean? Well, factorising really means putting things into brackets. So we can start out with an algebraic expression such as the one we've got here, 4x plus 12, and what we're trying to do is look for common factors in this expression, and then we can try and put it into a bracket. So we can see that in both parts of this expression we've got 4 will go into the first part there, and actually 4 is also a factor of 12. So we can take that factor out to the front of a bracket and we can say, well, that would be equal to 4, and then I've got to open up a bracket, so that means 4 times the bracket, and what's inside the bracket is what I can multiply by 4 to take me back to this original expression. So we can see that the first thing that we'd have to put in that bracket is x, because 4 times x would actually give me 4x. And then we also need to find what we could put here in the second part of the bracket to give us 12 if we multiplied it by 4. And we can see that what we'd have to do is put a plus 3 there, because if I times plus 3 by 4, I would get plus 12. So that's our answer, 4 outside the bracket, so 4 times the bracket there, and the bracket includes x plus 3. And if we ever want to check that we've got it right, what we can do is just multiply the bracket out again. So I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing this every time, but just if you're unsure that you've got it right, what you can do is just say, well, let's multiply the bracket out. So I've got 4x, or 4 times x, so that would give me 4x, and 4 times positive 3 will actually give me plus 12, which we know is right because that's what we started with. So we can see that our correct answer there is the 4, and then open the bracket, plus 3, and we factorised it. In the second example that I've got, we've got x times y, so xy means x times y, and we've got plus 3x. So we're looking again for a common factor. That means something that's in all parts of this expression. So we can see that we've got an x in the first part and an x in the second part. So actually we can take that to the front of a bracket, and then if we open up a bracket, what we've got to do is put what we need inside the bracket so that we would get back to where we started. So if we put a y there, we can see that x times y would give us the original xy there. And we then need to say, well, what would we have to multiply x by to get 3x? And what we would have to put is a plus 3, because 3 times x does give us 3x. So that's our final answer there. And if we did want to check that again, we could just multiply that out, and we can see that x times y gives us xy, and x times 3x is actually, it's a positive there, is plus 3x. So we did get back to where we started. So that was the correct factorisation. Moving on to our next example, I've made this one slightly more complicated. So again, we're looking for a common factor in both parts. So we could see that we've got a 5 obviously will go into 5, and a 5 will go into 15. So we could take out the 5 to begin with. But then we can see that there's x's in both parts as well. And the largest number of x's that's in both parts is just x. That's an x squared, so that means x times x. And so, in fact, if I was to write that out, the x squared is x times x there, which I can just write x and x next to each other, and then plus 15 times x. So we can see we've got, what the number of x's we've got in each part is actually just 1x there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that x out to the front, and then what I need to put inside the brackets is what I have to multiply this 5x by to get back to the start. So we can see that if I put an x there, then 5x times x would give us 5x squared. And I need to then think, what would I need to multiply the 5x by to give me 15x? And I can see, well, I've got enough x's, but I need to multiply 5 by 3 to get 15, so it's just 3. And that's, again, our final answer. And if I want to just check that, I could just do that by going 5x times x is 5x squared, so that would be that part, and then 5x times positive 3 will give us 15x. So we can see we got back to where we started. So that was the correct factorisation, what we had there. Now looking at a slightly more complicated one again. So I'm just trying to make these examples more complicated as I'm going through. And we can see we've got 16a cubed b plus 6a squared b squared. So what we can do is we can look at the number part first, and we can see that both the 16 and the 6, the largest number that will go into them both is actually 2, because they're both even numbers. So the biggest number we can take out for both parts is a 2. Then if we look at the biggest number of a's that will go into each part, although that's got an a cubed, we've actually only got a squared there, so we could take out an a squared. So that's the largest number of a's that's in both bits. And then if we look at the b's, we can see that we've only got one b there, and we've got b squared there. So the largest that's in both parts is just a b there, one b. So I can take out a b. And then what I need to do is look at what I've got to multiply this 2a squared b at the front of the bracket in order to get back to where I started. So I'm just going to look at each part separately, i.e. I'm going to look at the number bit first. So I can see that to go from 2 to 16 I need an 8, because 2 times 8 will give me the 16. And then to go from the a squared to the a cubed, well, a squared is a times a, but that's what a squared is, but a cubed is a times a times a. So we can see that really I've got to multiply the a squared, which is a times a, by a further a to get a cubed. So I need an a there. And then to get the b, well, what would I have to multiply b by in order to just get b? And the answer is 1. So I don't need to write that because I've already got 8a. So if I just times 8a by 2a squared b, I would get back to this 16a cubed b. Now I'm going to look at the second part of this expression, so the 6a squared b squared. So we can say, right, what have I got to multiply the 2 by, first of all, to get to 6? So that would be 3. What have I got to multiply the a squared by, but to get to a squared? And the answer is we're already there, so we don't need to add anything to that one. So we don't need a number in there now for that. What do I need to multiply b by to get to b squared? Well, if I times b by b, I will get b squared. So this one then is just the second part of the bracket is 3b. And if I was to check that out, let's just try that. So 2a squared b times 8a. So multiply the 2 and the 6 and the 8 together gives me 16. Multiply the a squared and the a together gives me a cubed. And then I've just got times by b, and there's no more b's actually inside the bracket, so that just stays as a b. So that's correct for the first part. And then if we do the second part, so the 2a squared b times 3b, then we've got 2 times 3 will give us 6, so that's correct. We've got a squared here, there's no more a's to multiply it by, so that just stays as an a squared. and we've got b times b, so that gives us b squared. So we can see that that is correct. So that with the bracket was the correct factorisation. So in my final example, I've tried to pick a more complicated one, and we can see we've got an expression here again, but it's got 3 bits. So what that really means is that when we come to do our bracket, we're going to actually have 3 things inside the bracket. So that's all that really means will happen. And at GCSE, that's probably about as complicated as it's going to get. You're not really going to have one where there's going to be 4 things. 3 you can get. So we then need to look at the factors of each part of these. So we'll look at the numbers bit first, and we've got an 8, a 14 and a 16. So the highest common factor of all of those, which means what's the largest number that will go into each one of those, is 2. So we can take a 2 out to the front. Next we're going to look at the x's. So the highest common factor of x squared, x and x cubed is actually just x. So if we look at the power that's the least of all these, it's this one in the middle, and that tells us what the highest common factor is. So we've got an x squared, an x to the power 1, even though the 1's not written, that's x to the power 1, and an x cubed. So the highest common factor of all those 3 is just the x. Then we're looking at the y's, and we can see we've got a y squared, we've got a y and another y squared. So the highest common factor of those is the y again that's got the least power. So that will be just y, or y to the power 1, but we don't need to write the 1 there. So that's just going to be y that we can take out. If we look at the z part, there's only a z in the middle bit. There's not a z in there or in there. So what that means is z isn't a common factor of all 3 bits of this expression. So we can't take a z out to the front. So to be fully factorised, it's just 2xy is the factor that we can take out. So next thing we need to do is work out what's going to be inside the brackets. So we're going to look at each bit separately again. So we're going to look at the number part. So for the 8x squared y squared, then we need to multiply the 2 to get to 8. So we need a 4 there. Then we need to get an x squared, and we've got currently an x at the front. So we need to multiply that x by another x to get to x squared. And then we've got a y at the front, but we need to get to y squared. So that means we've got to multiply the y by another y. So that's 4x there, 4xy. Now we're looking at the next one. We've got 14xyz. So we need to say, first of all, the number. So, and it is a positive, so we can put plus there as well. That's a positive there in front of the 14. So we need to go from 2 to 14. So we've got to write a 7 there. Now we need to go from x, but it's already an x in the expression there. So we don't need to add an x there, because if we did put an x there, we'd get x squared, which we don't want. So we don't need to put any more x's. We've also got enough y's there, because we've got a y that we're looking for, but we've taken a y out at the front. So we don't need any more y's, because again, if we did put a y there, we'd end up with y squared, which we don't want. We do, however, need a z. So we can see that at the front of the bracket, we don't have any z's there. So we are going to have to write a z there next to the 7. Now we're looking at the final bit, 16x cubed y squared. So again, we can put a plus in front, and we go in, what do we have to multiply 2 by to get to 16? And that answer is 8. Then we say, what do we need to multiply the x by? So the x in the 2xy here, what do we have to multiply that by to get to x cubed? And the answer is x squared. And then what do we have to multiply the y in the 2xy by to get to y squared? And the answer is we need to multiply y by itself to get to y squared. So that's it, and hopefully that should be completely factorised now. But I'm just going to check this again by multiplying out. So just doing the reverse operation and seeing if we get back to where we started. So we can say, right, 2 times 4 will give us the 8, x times x will give us x squared, y times y will give us y squared. So that's correct. That's what we wanted for the first one. Now we're going to look at the second bit, and we can see, first of all, let's look at the sign. That's actually a positive. If you don't see a sign at the front of the expression, it just means it's positive. So we're going to go plus times plus will give us plus. Then looking at the number, we've got 2 times 7 is 14. We've got x, there's no x's in this to multiply, so x just times what's there already will just give us just an x. We've not multiplied it by any further x's. And y, there's no y's in the 7z, so that just stays as a y. And now we've just got the z that we're multiplying there, so that will just be times by z, and that's again is correct there. So we're now looking at the final one. We've got the 2xy times the 8x squared y. So the number bit is 2 times 8, so that's 16. Then we've got x times x squared gives us x cubed, and y times y gives us y squared. And we can see that that is what we started with, so that actually means we were correct with this factorisation. So that was our correct answer. So I hope that's been helpful to you, and if it has, please consider subscribing to our channel to see more of our videos, and we'd love it if you give our video a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.